Hi, HR Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world's leading global brands. Today, we're joined by Serena Huang, Global Head of People Analytics at Kraft Heinz. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. First and foremost, I'm just going to point out for everyone on video, is that plant real?
It's tricky. It's actually not.
We were just speaking before the show, guys, about that, and it's interesting now because so many people have the fake plants, or you have the bookshelves with all these fancy books on there, and I'm like, is that a real plant, or have you read all those books that you're really putting on the Zoom call as well? So super interesting.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
but how are you anyway?
All the books.
Oh, you got the books behind you. Okay, you got the shelf behind you. Have you read all of those?
I have.
Okay. That's a relatively small collection. So sometimes I have guests with thousands.
Right?
Yeah, yours believable, but I see people with thousands of books. I'm like, surely not. And they're like, yeah, I've read all of them, Chris. I'm like, okay, all right, if you say so. So where are you joining us from? Where are you based?
Chicago.
Chicago.
It is sunny today.
Is it sunny?
Yeah.
Nice. I think our version of sunny today was like 10 degrees, which is barely, you can't, but for us, that was a great day. Let's go for a ride. It's 10 degrees outside.
Right. It's all relative.
It's true. Yeah. In London, that's a great day. That's, it's like not raining, then it's good. Anything but rain is a good day in London.
Yeah, we actually had snow earlier this week, so I'm not complaining about the sunshine in April for Chicago.
That's what's crazy is that you can have snow and sun in the same week.
Yes.
That just doesn't make no sense.
It's not.
Yeah. No. Well, look, thanks. Before we go any further, tell everyone a little bit more about yourself personally and your journey to where we are now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chris. I'm a PhD labor economist by training, and for the past 10 years, I have jumped from consulting to building people analytics from the ground up in Fortune 500 companies. Spent some time at GE and then Coke Industries, and now at one of the largest food companies in the world, Kraft Heinz.
Wow. What made you kind of move over from the dark side to I'm only joking.
Well, to be fair, it's not clear which side is the dark side.
That's true.
Depends on who you talk to.
That's true. I'm only joking. Yeah.
When I left consulting, my friends at the firm said I was going to the dark side.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yes, definitely. No, it was so interesting. In consulting, you go from one industry to another, learning the trade really quickly, but you don't go too deep, right? When you're a consultant, the companies don't really let you in on their darkest secrets. And I found that, now that I'm doing essentially people analytics consulting, but in-house, I'm able to make those, connections and build relationships with business leaders much more easily. Because I am part of the company, and that level of trust is just different. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I'm able to make larger impact, and because I'm able to stay on much longer than 3 to 6 months engagement, it's also allowing me to see the impact I'm making with my team and my work. So that's been really rewarding, and that's why I've stayed.
Yeah, that's so common what you're saying, by the way, that people that have moved over from consulting, they always say to me, Chris, you never get to see it come to life and the impact.
Right.
And that's always the part that they miss. And when they do move over to a practitioner role, they realize, wow, I was missing quite a lot there to see the impact it's having on the organization, on the people as well. What was your first role when you came out? When you came from consulting, was it straight into a people analytics lead role?
Yes, so it was workforce planning at the time at GE, actually. Mm-hmm. And so, with an economics background, which is about supply and demand, applying that to people in a workplace, that was a simple transition on the technical side. I would say because I had not been in HR prior to that, it took a little bit of upskilling and a lot of mentoring from the team that I was with on how to speak the lingo of HR, and it was a little different. So. Definitely really grateful for the opportunity. I was that was the part I wasn't quite sure about when I joined. I said, I've never done HR before, and they said, no, as long as you've got passion for people, we will do this. We will take you on our journey. And I've loved this since.
I'm interested to ask, what's your perception of HR then versus now?
I would say that because I've been with multiple companies, the HR department in every company is a little different. So I don't think there's a blanket statement you can make about HR in general. It depends on how they're structured, it depends on what they do. I would say that in the larger organizations, it's nice to see HR business partners wanting to be a coach, right, of people and make the business better with their expertise and guide them along the way, as opposed to the more traditional and very transactional type of HR. So, the part of organizations I'm usually working with are around talent development, right, and talent management and or global, total rewards. And in those functions within HR, they get really close to the employees, right, and helping them improving their employee experience and so on. So I think it's a little bit different from, let's say, the payroll side of HR, if you will.
Yeah, which is what people kind of, when people that aren't from it, they assume you think, oh, they pay us. That's what HR. Yeah, they hire and they fire and they pay us. That's right. That's the initial reaction.
There are people who do that.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely in every company.
And also, we actually, for those people out there that in the payroll side, we don't take, they're also taken for granted. People don't realize what it takes to actually make sure that everyone gets paid on time.
They have no idea how difficult of a job that is. Yes.
No idea.
Yeah, in one of my former roles, we were doing a cloud migration, so all the legacy HRIS system going to one cloud HCM, and part of the big test was, will people get paid on time and correctly? And and then of course that is the main part of what will make or break the system. So I think it's so underappreciated.
Definitely.
But yes, definitely. I think shout out and kudos to the payroll team.
Definitely. That's probably the first time we shouted them out. Sorry it's taken so long. The first time we're giving you a shout out on the show.
It's first time for everything.
I bet that was a sleepless night for you and the team as well, when you're like, wake at night, hopefully everyone gets paid. Wake up in the morning to people going, what's going on? But where we are now in the team, obviously you've got a global role. There's been huge shift in the workplace, in the world over the last year. How are you helping the teams work remotely during this environment that we find ourselves in?
It was a big change for us. So we used to be, I was like, so Kraft Heinz is co-headquartered in Chicago and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So half of my team is in Pittsburgh, but for the Chicago team, we were sitting next to each other every day, right, for multiple hours, side by side, working together, having lunch together, and the sudden shift to remote work, it was difficult to adjust to initially, and some of the team members have never worked remotely before. So we started doing different rituals and routines and trying to see what works. So initially, maybe you remember this for yourself as well. There were lots of virtual happy hours, right, to stay connected, and then people quickly got tired of it.
After a while, I wasn't so happy. It was like, oh, I've got to attend another one.
It's like, another meeting with you. No, thank you. So I think that quickly got old, but we realized there's a need to stay connected, and there's a need to continue to collaborate. So when we were in the office, I used to do these Friday innovation cafes. And we'll literally just pick up our laptop and go sit at a coffee shop, the whole team, and for about an hour. And we will talk about nothing related to current projects. It would be, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, what would you like to work on? What would be really exciting? So I brought that back virtually. And again, initially it was difficult to adjust to. It was not the same as trying out a new coffee shop in downtown Chicago, right? Less exciting. But, we bring our coffee and we chat about things that's not, already on our plate. So that was helpful to keep be collaboration and innovation going.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, as far as just getting through especially the first half of the pandemic that was so challenging, and it seems like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. I read this book called How to Have a Good Day last year during the pandemic, and something that I started to do, instead of looking at what task you're supposed to accomplish this week for the team, I asked instead, what would make this a good week for you every Monday morning? So what are the 3 things that would make this a good week that you will celebrate on Friday? So everyone has something different, usually that makes it more outcome focused as well. So instead of saying, I will make a PowerPoint, it's going to say,
yes.
The presentation goes well, it is well received, and someone does something with our data and insights, right? So that will make it a good week. And then at the end of the week, we check in to see if we've had a good week. Did those 3 things happen? And that's been a good change. That's been a good change.
I love that idea as well, and I'm sure you're learning a lot about your team.
Yes.
What is it? Because we may guess what a good week would look like for someone on our team, but we could be, I'm sure were you surprised by some of the answers?
I was surprised. Some of the surprises were related to, it wasn't so much about getting things done. It was about learning as well. So for some people, being able to take time to learn something new during the week will make it a good week. And perhaps that shouldn't be surprising. That's kind of intuitive. But if you look at that as their top 3, I think that's really interesting.
And then you may have someone else that maybe like, what would be a good week, and it could be something where they have maybe family they need to spend a bit of time with. As well. So I'm sure it can be completed, but I love the fact it's an open-ended question, and then it's outcome orientated, and at the end of the week can catch up and be like, did we have a great week? Right. And to do that as well as a rather just meeting and talking about where are we with this project, where are we with that project, it also doesn't make it as engaging and exciting as well.
That's pretty boring after a while.
Yeah, I know. We cut down a number of meetings that we had. I think we went overkill, like most people, like catching up every single day. It's like, it's exhausting. Where are we with this project? Where are we with this event? And it's like, we don't need to meet every day. Or like, we think we do twice a week now, in terms of catching up on projects. And we obviously speak in between that, but it's just like way too overkill.
We definitely were doing daily stand-ups initially, and it got to a point where it was too much and for everyone, and sometimes you don't have updates, right? Like
I know it's like
longer 48 hours instead of 24.
So I could be doing the work right now as opposed to being here with you.
Exactly. So what we ended up doing was, Monday we'll do the planning, and Friday we'll do a catch up and review. And on Wednesday we'll do a midweek check-in as well, but then we'll have Tuesday and Thursday placeholders. So just a calendar hold on people on the team's calendar. And if you have some questions, you can jump on, but otherwise do what you need to do, make coffee, work, yoga, what have you.
Mm-hmm. What have you found for yourself personally as a leader and other leaders in Kraft Heinz? What are the challenges that you've seen that they've had in terms of leading remote teams over the last year, both personally and the team?
So many. I think number one is how to be more empathetic, right? Everyone has very different personal and work challenges. And now that we're all on video calls all day, you're starting to see the life that you haven't seen before on your team members and your peers. And so with that, I think it's so easy to, in pre-pandemic times, go to an office and pretend like the other life doesn't exist and everyone is the same, but that's not. So we are, seeing people with challenges, whether that's family, really in a crowded space where they have to share the workspace and Wi-Fi bandwidth, to others who are living alone and have no one to talk to for days, except for the laptop screen. So everyone has different challenges. and being able to be more empathetic has made a difference for the leaders I've seen, myself included. It's a skill and muscle to practice. That definitely the pandemic has forced us to do, to really build this muscle, and I hope it doesn't go away after the pandemic ends. I hope we continue to have a focus on leaders being more empathetic and caring.
Yeah. What are some of the practical things and steps that you and the team have taken then to build that sense of belonging? Because that's the hard part, right?
It's so easy to replicate what happens in real life on Zoom. It is shocking. Initially, a lot of us thought, well, this is a great equalizer, right? Everyone get on the screen and you have the same space and you should have the same volume of voice. That doesn't actually happen. In a large, or at least in a large enough of a team meeting, you quickly realize, hey, the people who were really vocal before the pandemic, before we went remote, are still very vocal.
Or even more vocal.
Or even more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. The quiet people are still very quiet. So I think, figuring out a new way to facilitate discussions in virtual meetings has been very important, because it's not useful to me if I only hear from 20% of the room, right, the virtual room. So finding a way to make sure everyone has a voice in a virtual setting has been really important. And something that I've done is, especially for the people who don't naturally speak up as much, is make sure they are prepared. So they might need more time to prepare because they might, they might not want to say the first thing that comes to mind, right? So whether that's a little bit of pre-work on here are the topics we're going to discuss, be ready to share. And that just prompts everyone to share, or I'll be very explicit and I say, I want to hear from everyone on this call. So, and that usually works. But yeah, it's the same challenge that's replicated in the real world.
Yeah. I think we just have to be more conscious as leaders, right? Going into those meetings, that's the case, and making room for people, just even asking a question saying, Chris, do you have anything you want to add to that? I wouldn't ask a closed question, actually, an open question, saying, would love to hear your thoughts on that. Right. Otherwise, they may not wish to speak up. Or even some members of my team, I've said, if you're not comfortable sharing in the group, send me a private message in the chat.
Exactly.
Because because some people may not want to open up on it, especially if it's a big call as well. At least that way I know their feedback, and then I can address that to the room on their behalf. As well. So we just have to be more inclusive of everyone. You are right. It's a balancing act.
I found something helpful on larger meetings. So, if you go above, I would say 8 people, where some people are starting to not speak up as much or in similar amounts, to do a live poll. And I do this in a lot of meetings, and you can easily do it on Zoom and other meetings, so that you can hear from everyone. So, instead of, in addition to the chat function, I found that to be helpful. If you have a topic that you want to talk about, and just say, hey, make it as easy as give me a thumbs up or down, or on a scale of 1 to 5, right? And then that can be a conversation starter as well for those who didn't know what to say before.
Do you think this is a new skill for leaders, or we kind of just have to adapt to the new medium?
I think if we're going to hybrid after the pandemic, which most companies seems like they are, then yes, definitely it's a skill that we need to have. Using technology and so many new functions have become available as well on various platforms since the pandemic. I found it to be helpful. Like for some of our innovation time, we've done whiteboarding, right? There's a virtual whiteboard that you can use. And we do fun things like drawing as well as deep thinking about analytics. So the whiteboard is very flexible.
Who's the best drawer in your team? Go on, if they hear this after, who's the best drawer?
Ooh, I do have someone. Actually, it's probably a tie between 2 consultants on my team. But we had a challenge on draw a dog. You'll be shocked. It's not that easy to draw, especially with a mouse.
Oh yeah, because of course, yeah, because you grab the in Zoom on the whiteboard, you can do. Yeah, that's
right.
tough.
Yeah, no one is cheating with touch screens or anything like that. So this is a true challenge.
You could tell straight away if someone was cheating. It's like, wait a minute, you drew that with a mouse? No way.
Yes.
Yeah. A big part of the last year as well, I'm seeing so many companies upskill their HR team with data, with data analytics. Yeah. How are you doing this? Have you been doing this? How are you doing it? What's going well? What's not?
Yeah. Where should we start?
Yeah.
It's important to upskill the community so that as we build out solutions, whether it's a dashboard or an ML model, they know how to use it and they know how to use it to the fullest potential. So I've done this in every organization I've been with, and people analytics is doing anywhere from hands-on workshops to are the possible sessions that's more presentation to now we're considering doing open house where people can come and see demos of products we built and ask us questions. I would say I've definitely seen an increase in demand. So when I first got to Kraft Heinz, when we were still in person, I hosted the first people analytics learning series. It was a lunch and learn. So we did provide lunch at the time. And the room fit 50 and it was booked within a day. It was standing room only, and again, pre-pandemic times. So there's no social distancing problems. There were people who just stood in the back to listen. And so that's how important this is to the organization. We have obviously since then pivoted to completely virtual, and we've seen the enrollment in the session triple. We now have to host the session in 3 different time zones for our EMEA and APAC friends, along with a recording so that people who can't attend the session can watch afterwards. So definitely see the demand increase. It's really exciting to see that in the community, that we are not just pushing it, but there's actually a pool now.
What advice would you give, having done it multiple times, what advice would you give to other people listening that are perhaps, or your colleagues that are considering doing these themselves? What works best for you? What do you think you'd have done differently looking back?
So we do a mix of content. So we do like some external best practice sharing along with an internal case study. So this is what other companies have done. And this is what we are doing in our space because it's relevant for our company. I found that the internal case studies tend to resonate a lot better. And, of course, right, like, again, intuitive, this matters to me. I can relate to it. It's a business problem we are solving.
Give us an example.
Yeah, so in the well-being space, for example, we are doing a lot since the pandemic and keeping an eye on how employees are feeling, right? What they're struggling with, how is their stress level? So last year, I launched the very first global health and well-being survey. It's never been done before. And we started to see that a lot of people are stressed out, right? And of course, external research, you can say, hey, there's tons of research on this topic. Everyone's stressed. It's a pandemic. But it's different when you have internal data that shows the level of stress and how it varies from one country to another. And at the time, of course, Asia was way ahead in the pandemic wave, and then sort of Europe and then the US. So you quickly see the trends there on, who's been dealing with this type of stress for longer and are kind of fed up with it. And then the ones who are earlier on and not knowing what's going on and just dealing with more uncertainty. So I think, with that, we're able to show the community how we're listening to employees and addressing their needs. And then we actually partner with our benefits team to come talk about it, to talk
great.
About what they are doing when we show them the survey results and the new initiatives they're considering and the listening sessions, the virtual focus groups they wanted to do afterwards to better understand. So it made it really real, and it wasn't just my team talking, and it wasn't just analytics.
Love that. Yeah, it's great because then they can really, as you said, they can see what it means for them, what it means for the business, the teams. They can connect to it, and there's actual. They can see the outcomes that and the actions that you're taking, and the fact that you also brought in the comms and Ben's team as well was fantastic to get their insight and perspective as well. What kind of mix of obviously it's not just HR, right? Turning up to these meetings that you put together. What other kind of functions are most interested? Just out of curiosity, if you have that data. I know you do have that data. Of course, you of all people. Yeah, I know you've done a breakdown and say where are these people coming from in the business?
Yes. So funny you should ask. We've actually kept the sessions to HR only.
Oh, okay, all right.
However, the recording is available to all employees. The reason is, again, we have some just initially the space restriction on who can join. So we want to make sure our number one customers are taken care of before we open it up to others. But in the past, I've definitely invited the IT team as well, the analytics team, to come check out what it's like to do analytics in a different domain. So those have been interesting. We definitely get attendance from our IT friends as well when we do open that up. But yeah, and then Chris, it's also more sensitive topic sometimes.
I get it.
We might want to keep it to the HR team initially, and then really depending on the content and what is said, because it's all recorded. Some of the more sensitive topics we only keep it to the community, and others like super important topics like employee engagement, where we do need the whole community involved. We share out those sessions with the broad community.
During the session, are you sharing the analytics within your dashboard and then sharing the screen? Like, just out of curiosity, I know I'm going technical. I just want, because I know there's so many people listening who are probably thinking, what are you actually sharing? How does it look? Is it a PowerPoint presentation? Is it your dashboard, or you're sharing the insights?
Yes. So a lot of PowerPoint for sure, because again, the sessions are recorded, and sometimes you're worried about running into Wi-Fi issues suddenly. So we always have a backup plan. Even if we're demoing a live dashboard, sometimes we'll prepare the screenshots beforehand just in case it goes down. I would say that, again, because of the sensitive nature of the data, we actually make fake data dashboards for
the presentations. Okay.
Yes, for the presentation. So, there's a big sign that says for, illustrative purposes only, fake data.
Well, that's a good tip for everyone listening then. I'm glad I asked that now, because that's a great, I'm sure that's something that your peers would probably run into and be like, oh, yes, should we be doing this?
We show this, right? So instead of trying to find something that is either too high level where you can't show the interesting parts of the data, or something too granular where it gets into, okay, now I know which function and which business unit you are talking about. I can tell, because people always want to know, right? We just make it easy where we create fake data sets, and it's actually really helpful because it takes them out of that, this is my business unit or this is your business unit mindset. We do a hands-on practice in our workshop where we do maybe even call it a role play. So you are the HR business partner. Your leader comes to you asking you questions about this topic, and then you are given this dashboard. So how would you answer that particular request?
That's great.
So that we guide them through, here's some questions you can think of, and then sort of have them report out after in a breakout session. So what are you going to say now in the conversation with your business leader?
Where does all this content live within the business? Because that's one important part, right, of people of accessibility.
Right. So we found a spot in our LMS, our learning management system. So we created our own playlist. It's people analytics playlist that people can follow. So all the new content live there, and we have a few followers and growing.
We have a few. You're being kind there.
Yes.
I love the fact that so based on what you said earlier, then you had like you've got a couple of hundred people now within the HR team that are coming. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. So I would say, yes, somewhere between 100 and 200 on each of those quarterly sessions. And Yeah.
It's definitely not what I had anticipated. I was, I think initially we were hoping at least 25 people would show up.
Was there that, to be honest, was there a fear? You was like, please let someone turn up, because if no one turns
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. At the beginning, I was very intentional. I even planted questions in the audience in case there's dead air and things like that. And fortunately, haven't had to do that
Yeah.
again.
How did you promote it to the HR team? Just
So
out of curiosity.
we have a little newsletter that we send out with our monthly updates. We also have our SharePoint site that people can come check out what's happening, and recently added a countdown clock. So there's a countdown clock to the next event that's happening. So yeah, it's just fun
Exciting.
things that you get to do in
Yeah.
the pandemic with creativity. So kudos to my team for thinking of the countdown. So we've set it to the next dashboard launch. So that generates some excitement as well. And then if we have an event
Nice.
coming up, it will be set to the learning event.
Yeah. Well, having had hundreds of HR, peers in the organization go through the programs, what is the biggest challenge they typically face?
Believe it or not, time. Finding time to do go through the dashboards and learn how to use it. It takes time, right? Or I think, yeah, you're not surprised. You talk to a lot of HR people every day that this is a community that's been really stressed since the pandemic, with new things, new challenges every day, employees' health and safety being number one, and finding the time to do it has been challenging. So the way we've tried to help with that is, of course, lots of notice beforehand. We also talk to the leaders of the HR leaders in various divisions, and we tell them, hey, this is coming up. Please help us make time on your HR business partners' calendars so that they can attend and learn from this. So there's a little bit of you have to create the time and space, and a little bit marketing involved as well.
I want to jump back to the kind of the health and well-being kind of work that you're doing as well. Are you tracking burnout? Is that kind of something you've been able to do? Because I know people have been talking about it's a big topic right now. I know you're doing some great work with sort of you're offering I think you spoke before meditation course. You've got some apps and stuff like that. That's all great,
Yeah.
and it's fantastic to have that. But have you been able to sort of measure the impact of those tools, and can you track burnout in some sense?
We're trying. It is difficult. It is difficult to track burnout, right? Because of course, being in the space, we've done a lot of research on what are the ethical ways, the right ways to measure burnout, and there's not a clear answer, for sure. But we definitely use the things like health and well-being surveys that we've run to look at the comments people have made on questions related to stress, questions related to work-life balance. And we do see words like overwhelm. We do see words like burnout or cannot unplug or those type of things. And then we're able to see whether or not that's on the rise. And where are the areas within the organization where it's more problematic. So I think, I don't think we've cracked the nut on how to track burnout exactly, but it is definitely one of the areas we're paying really close attention to.
Yeah.
The comment around meeting comes up a lot. Again, not surprising, but sometimes it's helpful to have those comments, the volume of the comments that we're able to bring to the leadership team and say, look, this is really an issue for employees in this particular business unit, or, hey, this is a widespread problem. Everyone is saying we have too many meetings.
And you've got the data
was,
to back it up, right, from the surveys.
Right. Right, exactly. And then related to that, we also ask about, people's ability to take time off. Again, lots of great benefits are offered, but if no one uses it, it's not really helpful. So we do, going back to tracking what's effective and whatnot. We definitely look at time off and whether or not people are leveraging the benefits that they have. And sometimes, we see we see people having issues taking time off, not because their managers say no, but because there's too much work to do. Initially we had I can't go anywhere, I'm not traveling, so I don't want to use the time off. And now, it's gotten to, but I have so many meetings and so much work to do. I don't want to feel behind when I come back from PTO. So that's a whole nother problem to solve.
Yeah, you are right. Half of the battle is our managers modeling that behavior to show that it's okay to take a time off. But you are right. The other half of that is people thinking, if I have time off, I'm already busy. I'm going to come back and I'm going to have a ton of work that I need to catch up on. And then you just decide, well, I might as well just carry on working as well. It's you're kind of losing either way without doing that. So that's a real challenge. Yeah, I think I am really concerned. Obviously, I'm very passionate about this topic. That we've not really seen. This is only the beginning. I don't think we've really seen the real impact that the last year's had. I think we're underestimating it, and it's great that we have all of these tools in place. We're starting to have more of open conversations. Our leaders are being, leading with empathy. These are all great steps as well. But I still think I hope organizations continue to work in this space and don't think we're all fine now. Everyone's vaccinated. We get back to normal because there's so many underlying issues that have not surfaced yet. As well. What about kind of in terms of reopening and kind of getting back to, I would say getting back to work because we're all working, but back to the workplace, because obviously in part of what you do, you have to, a lot of your employees have to be there because you're obviously making products in an environment there. Have you done any work with your senior leadership team of assessing country by country, state by state, country by country, in terms of the safety parameters to go back to work and what the data is saying, the risk analysis?
Yes, there's a lot of work in that space. So certainly for our frontline workers who are making your mac and cheese and ketchup, they're still they're still working. That hasn't changed. For our professional workforce, knowledge workers, except for our R&D group, again, if they're making new sauces, they need to be on site. They can't do that from home. So we still have lots of knowledge workers, and we're considering different arrangements as far as the going back to office. I think what we know right now is it has to be very local. There's not a one size fits all policy that's going to work. Of course, because of the pandemic situation being different, the local policies being different. But if you think about even within the United States or any country where your office is located, whether it's a suburban area where people can drive there versus a big city like Chicago or London where people have to use public transportation, the risk level is completely different. And when they go there, do they have to take the elevator? Being in an elevator with a ton of strangers doesn't sound good right now to most people. So I think we have lots of local challenges that we have to figure out. So there's various work streams, one figuring out what does flexibility mean in the future, and then the other around really the work arrangement. And then we also have another team figuring out what does the space need to look like after the pandemic, right? So we anticipate it's going to be more collaboration space and less, compared to before, right? Lots of desk and things like that, where now it's going to be more collaboration space. But then we also have to figure out the social distancing part, right?
Of course.
How is that going to work? And so there's at least 3 work streams on that, and figuring out by location what we need to do there.
Yeah, it must be tough as well because the data changes every day, and the rules and regulations every day. There's like, oh, this is a red zone country, and this is it's just every day. It's so hard to keep up with what's happening. I'm seeing most companies take the approach now where they're looking at where their employee base are located, and then creating like co-working spaces, not in cities though. Right. So much. So like, around the countryside in the UK, for example, and like completely different, And I'm seeing a lot of companies like WeWork and others in that space all of a sudden now open up locations that you'd never think of, like, I just said in the countryside. It's like, wait a minute, there's an office there, but they understand that's where their employees live. Before I let you go, I just want to run into our quick fire round, which I go through with each guest. If you listen to it, you're aware of it. If not, it's a surprise to you now. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and you have no longer than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers.
All right.
Are you ready?
That's tough.
What was the number one thing that was holding you back from becoming a people analytics leader?
Oh, I would say maybe self-doubt along the way.
Yeah, we all feel that, don't worry. What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Oh gosh, I think have a growth mindset and keep learning. I love the book Mindset. For those of you who haven't read it, it talks about what does a growth versus fixed mindset looks like, and highly recommend.
Yeah, well, my next question was, what would be a book you'd recommend to audience and why? Okay. I know you love reading books, so give me another one. Give us another one.
Let's see. Hold on. I love this Think Again by Adam Grant.
Great book.
It just came out. It's along the same line of challenging what you believed before. And you might be wrong. Maybe you were wrong before. So gotta think again.
How would your friends and family describe what you do for a living?
Oh my gosh, no idea. Some sort of number crunching related to people.
I think you were being nice about that as well. What's a kind of a common misconception you think that people may have about you?
I don't know why. I think it surprises people to know how active I am physically.
So they think because you're in. So they think you're just sitting there in a cubicle. Why. They think you're sitting there on a computer crunching numbers, and that's it. You don't leave the desk.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, no, I now work out twice a day. So
twice a day.
I'm pretty active.
Wow. Yeah. Like what kind of workouts are you doing? What kind of?
So I do a morning yoga, and then in the evening I'll do some kind of high intensity.
How many days a week?
7.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Okay. You're just making everyone feel bad now. That's
No.
No, you're inspiring everyone. You're inspiring everyone.
Yes. Well, this is what keeps me sane in the pandemic, and everyone does something different.
That's amazing. And then last thing, what's one thing about the business that you're most excited about?
I look forward to people analytics continuing to be a focus area for HR in every company. Post the pandemic, I think we are seeing the elevation and importance and what people analytics can do. I hope that continues.
Amazing. Well, look, thanks so much. I'm glad we managed to make this happen. I appreciate you taking the time out to join us. Before I let you go, if there's one parting piece of advice you could give to other people analytics practitioners out there and HR, what would that be? And then where's the best place for people to connect with you if they want to reach out and say hello?
Yeah, I think, maybe not just for HR, but use the pandemic as a reset to rethink how you want to live your life. I think we've also figured out where people analytics can play a different role in the pandemic. And how HR can bring more value to the business. But I would say encourage everyone, even those who are not in HR, think about what kind of life you want to live after the pandemic, how you want to spend your time, who you want to spend your time with. And don't let this opportunity go to waste.
Yeah. If you want to work out twice a day, do it. Exactly. 7 days a week.
Now is the time. Now is the time. And where can people connect with you? LinkedIn or? Yes, LinkedIn and Twitter. That's
LinkedIn and Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
Serena Huang, PhD.
Amazing. All right. Well, now everyone knows.
Very easy.
Yeah, and obviously for anyone else, the links will be below, so you make your life easy. If you click the link below, you can connect with on LinkedIn as well. Perfect. Well, look, thanks again for taking the time to join us, and I wish you all the best until we next week.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.